Let me tell you a story that will probably sound familiar to at least half of you. It's 3 in the morning, you've had maybe 2 hours of sleep, you're standing in a line that hasn't moved in 20 minutes, and you're mentally running through everything in your carry-on. That snack for the plane, the laptop, the weird gift you bought for your cousin, the liquids bag you definitely, maybe, hopefully assembled correctly. Your brain is a foggy checklist of dread. And right there, under the harsh fluorescent lights of the terminal, you will have a profound, if sleep-deprived, realization. The difference between sailing through security and having your entire morning unravel into a public, granular inspection of your personal belongings often comes down to a series of tiny, misunderstood rules. The Transportation Security Administration, the TSA, operates on a code that feels part common sense, part bureaucratic arcana, and entirely subject to the mood of the officer staring at the X-ray screen. I've been that tired traveler, but after years of navigating airports across this country, from the massive, chaotic hubs to the quiet regional runways, and after spending an embarrassing amount of time actually reading the fine print, talking to officers when they're allowed to talk, and learning from costly mistakes, I've come to see the TSA checkpoint not as a gauntlet, but as a game with very specific, if sometimes infuriating, rules. And today, I'm going to give you the playbook. So here's my question for you, and I genuinely want to know because it tells me so much about the travel experience we all share. What's the one item you were absolutely positively convinced was going to get you in trouble with TSA, but sailed right through without a second glance? Or conversely, what completely innocent everyday object caused a massive hassle and left you standing there, bewildered and holding up the line? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and your experience might just save another traveler from the same fate. Go ahead and drop that in the comments now, and then let's get into the real, often unspoken truths about what you can and cannot bring through an American airport. Because here's the thing most first-time travelers to the US, and even seasoned flyers, get wrong. They think the TSA's rules are a static list of yes and no. They're not. They're a dynamic set of guidelines interpreted by human beings who are trained to look for threats, not necessarily for consistency with the guy at the checkpoint 3 lanes over. Your success hinges on understanding the principles behind the list, the officer's mindset, and the hidden pitfalls that don't make it onto the website's FAQ page. This isn't about memorizing a list. It's about developing a traveler's intuition. Let's start with the holy gospel of security, the liquids rule. Everyone knows the 3.1-ounce limit, the quart-sized bag. It's been drilled into us since 2006. But knowing it and understanding it are two different things. The rule isn't about the size of the container. It's about the potential volume inside the container. That nearly empty 8-ounce toothpaste tube with just a smear left, that's a forbidden item. The officer sees the container size on the X-ray. They don't know it's mostly empty. They see an 8-ounce tube. It gets flagged. This is where people fail. They think, it's mostly used, it's fine. The scanner disagrees. The rule is absolute on this. If the container is labeled as, or appears to be, over 3.4 ounces, 100 milliliters, it's not allowed, regardless of actual content. Now, here's a nuance most miss. The quart-sized bag is a requirement, not a suggestion, and it must be a bag. A 1-gallon zipper bag is too big. A solid cosmetic case doesn't count. It must be plastic, sealable, and roughly quart-sized. And everything liquid, gel, aerosol, cream, or paste must fit inside comfortably. The comfortably part is key. If you have to force the seal shut, if it looks like an overstuffed pillow, an officer can and will deem it non-compliant. They need to be able to see all the items inside easily. I've seen officers make people throw out a perfectly compliant 3-ounce bottle simply because the bag was too overstuffed to be inspected visually. It's a power they have, and they use it. Your strategy should be to use a bag that's actually a bit larger than you need so it closes easily. Show them you're not straining the limits. But let's talk about what isn't a liquid, because this is a massive gray area that causes endless confusion. Solid deodorant, not a liquid. It's fine. No bag needed, no size limit. You can bring a stick of deodorant the size of a log cabin in your carry-on if you want. But gel or spray deodorant, that's a liquid aerosol. It must follow the 311 rule. Similarly, that fancy chocolate truffle with a liquid center, that's a liquid. I know, it seems solid, but if it can spill, spread, or pump, it's treated as a liquid. Peanut butter, yogurt, jam, all liquids in the eyes of TSA. The test is simple. If you can pour it, spread it, smear it, or spill it, it's likely a liquid. This is why I always say, when in doubt, put it in the checked bag, or be prepared to surrender it at the checkpoint. Now let's move to electronics, the other great checkpoint drama generator. Laptops out. Everyone knows that. But what about your iPad, your Kindle, your Nintendo Switch? The official rule states that any electronics larger than a cell phone should be taken out of your bag and placed in a separate bin. This is where discretion comes in. At most major airports now, with the new computed tomography, CT scanners, the big beige units that look like round-cornered boxes, you often don't need to remove anything. But you can't count on that. The old Blue Belt X-ray machines are still everywhere. My rule of thumb, and this has never failed me, is to be prepared for the worst-case scenario. Have a system. I have a sleeve that holds my laptop, tablet, and e-reader. When I get to the bins, I take that entire sleeve out and lay it flat in a bin. Everything else stays in my backpack. This signals to the officer that I am compliant, experienced, and not trying to hide anything. It speeds things up immensely. But here's a critical warning. Don't just chuck everything into a bin willy-nilly. I saw a man pile his laptop, his shoes, his belt, his wallet, his phone, and a jacket into one bin. It looked like a yard sale. The X-ray image was a chaotic mess. They pulled him aside for a bag search because the officer couldn't discern anything clearly. Neatness matters. A cluttered bin is a suspicious bin. Power banks and batteries. This is a rule born from fire risk, not terrorism, and it's strictly enforced. You can bring power banks, lithium-ion, lithium metal batteries in your carry-on. You cannot put them in checked baggage, ever. The limit is 100 watt-hours for most airline approval, and you can usually bring two larger ones up to 160 watt-hours with airline pre-approval. But practically, if you're buying a standard power bank from a reputable store, you're fine. The problem is the cheap, no-brand power banks from online marketplaces. They often have inaccurate or missing watt-hour ratings. If an officer can't determine the rating, they can confiscate it. My advice? Keep the original packaging or have a photo of the specs on your phone, and make sure the terminals are protected from short-circuiting. Tossing a loose power bank into a bag full of keys and coins is asking for a thermal event and a world of trouble. Let's talk about the weird stuff, the items that live in the gray zone and cause the most entertaining comment stories. Tools. You can bring tools under 7 inches in length. A small screwdriver, an Allen wrench set, pliers, that's allowed. A full-size hammer, a saw, a drill, checked baggage only. But here's the officer's discretion. A set of small, precise screwdrivers might be fine. But if they look like they could be used as effective stabbing instruments, they might get a second look. It's about intent and perceived threat. Sports equipment is a comedy of errors. You can bring a baseball bat in your checked bag. You cannot bring it in your carry-on. That seems obvious. But what about golf clubs? Checked. A hockey stick? Checked. Now, here's a fun one. You can bring a single billiard cue in your carry-on. I have no idea why a single cue is allowed, but two are presumably a threat. The rules are whimsical like that. Martial arts weapons are, predictably, a no-go. But what about a heavy metal water bottle? That's fine. It's all about design and perceived use. Food. This is a massive one, especially for international travelers or people bringing gifts. You can bring virtually any solid food through security. Sandwiches, fruit, cooked meat, cheese, bread, candy, no problem. The issue arises when the food has a sauce, a gel, a liquid component. That soup you brought from home? Liquid. The cranberry sauce? Gel. The fancy perfume-infused chocolate with a gooey center? Liquid. I've had a jar of local salsa confiscated. It was sealed, unopened, but it was a liquid. I've also sailed through with a whole, unpeeled durian fruit, much to the chagrin of everyone in the security line. The smell was my real crime. But solid, non-liquid food is perfectly fine. This leads to a pro tip. If you're bringing a meal for the plane, pack the wet components separately in your checked bag or buy them after security. Now let's dive into the true heart of TSA confusion. The difference between TSA allows and the airline allows. This distinction costs people more money and heartache than anything else. The TSA governs what can pass through the security checkpoint. The airline governs what can physically come onto the aircraft. The TSA might perfectly allow your oversized, heavy, weirdly shaped item, but the gate agent for the airline can look at it and say, "That's not fitting in our overhead bin, and it's too fragile, fragrant, heavy to gate check. You need to go back to the ticket counter and check it." And you'll pay a gate check fee that's often double the checked bag fee. I've seen this with massive musical instruments, elaborate pieces of art, even an enormous wedding dress in a giant garment box. TSA waved it through. The airline stopped it cold. Always check with your specific airline about carry-on size and weight limits, and about their policy on special items before you get to the airport. TSA's approval is just the first hurdle. Medication is an area where the rules are very clear, but fear is high. You can bring any medication you need in any quantity through security. It does not need to be in your liquids bag. It does not need to be in its original container, though that is highly recommended for prescription meds to avoid any questions. You can bring liquid medication in quantities greater than 3.4 ounces. But, and this is a big but, you must declare it to the officer at the start of the screening process. You say, "I have medically necessary liquids." They will likely pull it aside for additional screening, which may involve a quick test for explosives residue. This is a standard procedure. Don't be nervous about it. It's your right. The key is communication. Trying to hide a large bottle of insulin or cough syrup in your bag is a surefire way to get a full pat-down and bag search. Being upfront turns a potential confrontation into a simple, respectful procedure. Sharp objects. The classic. Scissors with blades shorter than 4 inches from the pivot point are allowed. That's pretty long. Most household scissors are fine. Knives? The rule is brutally clear. No knives. None. Not even a small pocket knife with a 2-inch blade. Not a Swiss Army knife unless you remove the blade beforehand. Good luck. I don't care if your grandfather gave it to you, if it's a tool, if it's just for my apple. It's a knife. It will be confiscated. I've seen grown men nearly cry over surrendering a cherished pocket knife. Put it in your checked bag or leave it at home. Razor blades? The disposable cartridge razors like Gillette or Schick are fine. The kind where the blade is exposed and removable, like a classic safety razor blade or a utility knife blade, are not. Check them. The process itself, the dance of the bins, is where psychology plays a huge role. Officers are looking for anomalies, for stress, for deception. Someone who avoids eye contact, who is fumbling excessively, who is overly argumentative about a simple rule, raises a flag. Your goal is to be the most boring person in line. Have your ID and boarding pass ready before you get to the front. Listen to the officer's instructions. If they say, "Empty your pockets completely," that means keys, gum wrappers, tissues, everything. A single forgotten coin in your pocket can trigger the metal detector or body scanner alarm, leading to a pat-down. Is a pat-down the end of the world? No. It's professional and quick, but it's a delay and it's avoidable. Wear simple clothes, shoes that are easy to slip off, a belt that comes off easily. Minimal jewelry. You are optimizing for speed and invisibility. What about children's items? Formula, breast milk, baby food, juice. These are all exempt from the 311 rule in reasonable quantities. You must declare them for inspection. The same goes for disability-related liquids and gels. The principle is necessity. TSA is not going to separate a mother from her child's nourishment, but again, declare it. Don't make them find it. One of the biggest secrets no one talks about is the TSA pre-check line versus the standard line. It's not just about speed, the rules are literally different. With pre-check, you leave your laptop in your bag, you leave your compliant liquids bag in your bag, you keep your shoes and light jacket on, you keep your belt on, you walk through a metal detector, not a body scanner. It's a completely different, dignified experience. The investment is worth it for anyone who flies more than once a year. But remember, having pre-check doesn't mean you're immune from random additional screening. It just makes it far less likely. Finally, let's address attitude. The officer at the checkpoint has a difficult, monotonous, and critically important job. They are not your enemy. They are not there to personally inconvenience you. A simple good morning, a smile, a cooperative demeanor goes an incredibly long way. I have seen officers use maximum discretion on a slightly oversized liquid for a polite person, and I've seen them throw the book at a belligerent passenger for the most minor infraction. You catch more flies with honey, and you get through security faster with courtesy. The core truth of TSA rules is this. They are a framework designed for the lowest common denominator of threat, interpreted by humans under stress, and executed in an environment of constant, low-grade anxiety. Your job as a traveler is not to challenge the framework, but to navigate it with such smooth proficiency that you become a ghost in the system. You prepare meticulously, you pack with the rules in mind, you dress for the occasion, and you comport yourself with calm awareness. You understand that the forbidden item isn't just the obvious weapon, but the thing that creates a confusing image, that requires a laborious search, that breaks the flow. It's the snow globe from the gift shop. Liquid inside over 3.4 ounces, always confiscated. It's the jar of local honey, a gel, not allowed. It's the seemingly harmless tactical pen that's really a glass breaker and a stabbing tool. So pack your patience with your 3-ounce bottles, put your knives in your checked bag, declare your medications, be neat, be courteous, and for heaven's sake, don't joke about bombs or security. That's not a mistake you make twice, because the first time will involve a lot of very serious people in a very small room, and you will miss your flight. The goal is to get from the curb to your gate with your dignity and your belongings intact, ready to begin your journey. Master these unwritten rules, the space between the lines on the TSA website, and that's exactly what you'll do. Safe travels.